Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. I've spent the entirety of qualifying talking to myself until I decide to actually check the YouTube chat. Apologies, I'm not exactly sure what happened there. It does seem that, unfortunately, Streamlabs decided to disconnect my audio. Just say hi there on the YouTube chat if you can hear me now. And I do apologize. I'll have to repeat everything that I've said thus far. That's such a shame. But okay. So we are back up and running with the commentary finally. In terms of the times, Sean Olivier setting a superb time of 2:10.554. And Gijsberg Attinaagel very close to that with his 2:10.580. It doesn't seem like he's going to get another run in. So it's going to be on the other drivers to see if they can get their noses in. Closest driver, Sean Johnson, not really in a position to do anything at the moment. So he's still going to have enough time for a second lap. So we'll see what he's able to do. And then Host jumping there into the fourth position with the 2:12.178. Unfortunately, shoved down the standings by Van der Westhuizen. And he's going to secure fourth position. Big apologies for everyone in the YouTube chat. Yeah, it does seem like we've had some audio issues, but we should be sorted for Div 1. So I'll just run you through all of the details yet again. For now, we've got the drivers finishing up. So Sean Olivier looking slightly safe in first position. It all depends on this lap by Johnson. He does have 5/10/6 in the bag and only the last sector of the track to go. So it's all going to depend on whether he can nail those corners, but it's still not going to be enough to really get him in the region of Attinaagel unless he finds even more time. So Olivier and Attinaagel now settled in first and second. And we're on board with Sean Johnson. Already 8/10. He's going to try and hold on to this. It's looking very, very solid indeed. He's finding massive improvements. I think if you're Attinaagel, you'll be sweating at the moment. It all depends on this last corner. Johnson losing a bit of time there on the hairpin exit, and that has cost him in the run up to the final corner. Now into the final corner, and it does seem like he's got a good exit, and we'll see where that puts him. I think it might be just shy of Attinaagel. This is going to be extremely close. So Johnson coming across the line with a 2:10.583. That's 0.003 of a second away from second position, and that's an amazing last effort there at the end for Johnson. James Leach Sr. also improving massively on his lap time. It's not going to be enough to pop him up another position, but it is going to secure him in that 7th position. And last driver on the track, Ogedai Thunder. So the drivers have finished their qualifying. I'm going to send you to an ad break, and then we'll be right back with the actual race with the Div 2 drivers. Welcome back, ladies and gentlemen. We are on the grid with the drivers. We've got that rabbit chased off the track. I think he was hanging around in Casanova a little bit. But we are set to get going. So we've got Sean Willoughby leading the pack here at the start. And it is looking good for a race. Just a big thanks for everyone that's tuned in. I'm seeing quite a few faces. I'll catch up with you once we've gotten going and everything has settled a little bit. But for now, we've got the 6 lights up on screen, and the race director is making us wait a little bit. This was the site for the Tuscan Grand Prix in 2020, so hopefully we don't see the same levels of chaos that we saw for the F1. Everyone getting off nice and quickly. Sean Olivier securing that first position and will be heading off to the first turn. So coming across the hill, and Olivier comfortably leading at first, Atinal closely following behind him. And everyone kind of spreading out a little bit behind them. Keen's involved there in a 2-wide situation going through the first turn, and Keen's dropping slightly back from Sean Johnson there, still in the fight there, and he's going to be continuing just battling it out there with number 69 running slightly wide, and I think unfortunately that's the driver off track. Sean Willoughby very comfortable out in front now with a 1.2 second gap. And he is going to charge on ahead. Gijsbert Atinagel, the closest man to him, but he is under pressure from Sean Johnson. And then Keen goes behind him. All 3 of them comfortably leading the kind of second group. Ooh, and Atinagel putting a wheel in the grass there. Somehow he's kept control of the car. And he's going to run defensively on the inside of Arrabbiata. And hopefully nothing too noodly about this for him. Johnson still looking there for an opportunity. They're on the run down to the chicane. And Atinochel comfortably running through there, and he's opened up a little bit of a gap. Johnson now falling slightly behind, and Johnson now coming under pressure from Keen Goos. Right behind him there, you can see the Johnson, Goos and Leach Senior, all three running the number 46 car of Johnson. And everyone comfortably getting through the first lap. It has been quite clean. And all the drivers just settling into their position. So well done for them for that first lap. Willoughby absolutely clocking out in the front, and as some of you have said in the YouTube chat, he has been doing incredibly fast times. Ati Nagel kind of distracted by Johnson behind him, and that has worked brilliantly for Willoughby out in front. Keen Goos and James Leach Senior in a little bit of a scrap here. Sorry, not Goos and Johnson in a little bit of a scrap here. Goos going up the inside. Sorry, around the outside. It's so difficult with these cars to kind of see them apart. But Goos driving out around the outside of Johnson. They're just utilizing his momentum absolutely brilliantly. And that is going to affect how these drivers tend to defend corners, because while you do want to not create a gap for the driver behind you, you also want to maintain the speed so you don't get stuck further down the road. Johnson not letting Goos go that easily, looking to put the nose just up the inside. Goos is not going to be too bothered by it and just continue with his normal racing line as they now head through everybody outside 1 and 2. This is basically just flat for these cars, and I can imagine you even getting a little bit of an advantage from a tow in the car in front. Remember, these cars don't rely on downforce, so it's all going to be about the mechanical grip that you have to your advantage. Further down the pack, Dave Brady, a bit of a new name for Div 2 here, nicely settled into the middle of the pack. He's having a bit of a scrap with Leach Senior. Leach running defensively on the inside, just slightly positioning his car so that Brady doesn't opt to do anything too crazy. And that's all that's going to be required for a defense here, is just cut off the ideal line for your opponent, and that is going to put them in a compromising situation. Keen Goos now on the outside here of Atinacho. He's caught up with him, and he's going to be battling for that position. It's really nice to see Goos back in the seat. We missed him for about two race weekends, and it's lovely to see him back here. I can imagine his father, Melvin Goos, really supporting him with these races. Now, Keen trying to set up that position on the outside. Atinacho running very deep on the inside. That is going to compromise his run into the next corner. I'm surprised he hasn't resumed the racing line after Goos kind of got past him. Johnson is now going to run a bit closer to Ate as well, thanks to that. Further down the pack, Donny Stunder under a little bit of pressure from Williams behind him. Not too far apart. Sorry, not too close together, but they also not too far apart that you don't kind of lose touch of the driver behind you. That being said, Stunder just opening up the gap with Williams now. I think Williams kind of made a small mistake in the previous corner, and that has unfortunately put him down the rankings. You can see Van Wyk now also getting past as Williams unfortunately runs off the track there in the background. Wieringa also promoted. Just again a big shout out to Ilge Wieringa. He is the man behind our sponsor. You can see there on the hood of the car, Alwyn, and he's kind of helps us just make ends meet, kind of get better internet connectivity and everything for the series. So he's done an awesome job of kind of getting everything kick-started right off the bat. He's also been supporting us in one of our previous series, the Aussie V8, which was a really fun series to run. So massive thanks to him. Back out of the front, Sean Johnson is having a ball here in fourth position, and he has closed in on Atti Nagel. So you can imagine Atti kind of feeling the pressure now. And Johnson just trying to get himself in a good position to kind of catch a draft. And he is going to be drafting all the way down to the first corner. But not some massive closing speed after that previous turn. You can now see Johnson there moving to the outside. Atti again running on the inside. I don't know if he's realizing that that inside line is going to cost him. But it's all going to come down to braking. Johnson kind of squeezing Atti further towards the inside. And that's completely compromised Atti's exit out of the corner. So Johnson moving up into the third position. Further down the line, Kiengo's still having a bit of a lonely race. Willefeer is 1.4 seconds down the road. So we'll check the closing speeds between them. Kiengo's previous lap doing a 209.808. So that is extremely quick for these cars. The only driver that's really jumped into the 209s. So he is hunting down Sean Olivier. Unfortunately, Hildebrand is in the pits, and I suspect that might be from some damage to his car. You shouldn't really be pitting in this race. It is fairly short, 20 minutes. These cars will be doing the entirety of the race distance, both on fuel and tires. Atti Nagel is not losing touch with Johnson in front of him. So he's close enough to just kind of keep the pressure there, just to have himself as an ever-present threat in Johnson's mirror. And Atti desperately wants to kind of keep up with Johnson here, just keep himself in the range for whether a mistake happens, or even just to kind of pile on the pressure a little bit. Willefeer having an absolute ball of a time out in front. Maybe a bit lonely, but he is going to get a bit of action now as Goos is closing in on him. Down to 1 second between the drivers. And you can only imagine the amount of pressure that's now starting to pile on. Again, just a quick shout out to everyone that's been saying hi on the YouTube chat. Melvin Goos, of course, supporting your son here in second position. Welcome. And then to the Div 1 drivers as well. I think Monet, Tommy Leary, Moss. Welcome to you guys. Ross Himan being a bit of a new name here. Welcome to you. And hopefully you enjoy our commentary here of the South African MX5 League. This is, and as I previously said before, when I was talking to myself, this is Sim Experience South Africa. This is our MX5 series that we run every Sunday. First, we've got the Div 2 drivers. Those are the guys on track at the moment. So, not necessarily slow though, as you can see from Willefeer and Goos, both developing into absolute stellar drivers over the course of this series. So Div 2 already quite exciting, but then we've got Div 1 later tonight. It's probably going to start at about 8 p.m. Standard African Central Time, I think, or something like that. And then, yeah, also welcome to Timo Smith. He's one of the Div 1 drivers, and Willefeer very loose on the rear there. That has opened the door for Keen Goos. And Goos is now going to try and move up on the outside here. Not going to find it, but he might go for the switchback. You can see Willefeer struggling so much with the exit of that corner, and Goos now right on his rear as we head into the chicane. And Goos, well, I say chicane, that's kind of a bit of a non-issue for these cars. Now Goos again positioning himself for the outside. Goos just squeezing him a little bit, making sure he goes the long way around. And Goos is going to try and make a very late apex here and get as fast of an exit as he possibly can. And now closing in on Willefeer there, and you can see Willefeer running very deep on the inside to kind of break the toe. And Goos is going to try and pull a Hamilton here. That is extremely brave, running so deep on the inside, but you can only imagine that really ruining your chances in the next corner. He's now very deep on the inside, covering off Olivier. Olivier going for the switchback, and he is going to get the drive off that corner with the momentum. So Ghost is going to have to settle back in line for the rest of this middle sector and kind of assess his attack. So still a few things that he might want to learn from this, but absolute stellar job of kind of sticking his foot in there. Major drift from Olivier. He's going to lose a whole lot of speed there, and this is a bit of a worry for him because now it is down the hill, it is flat after this corner, and Ghost does have a bit of a drive on him, so we'll stick with him as the situation currently stands. Ghost running a very wide line, trying to get that faster exit speed through Arrabbiata too. Johnson and Atinagel, you can kind of see them there in the background, are also starting to catch up with these two as they are currently battling it out for the pole position. So going to be very interesting. You can also see Sean Olivier previous lap at 2:11.629, so running quite slow in comparison to the other drivers around them, and I think that might be why you're seeing the drivers such as Johnson and Gijsberg Atinagel closing in on them. In the background, further down the road, Brady in fifth position is also doing a stellar job of kind of holding on to that position. Ghost now onto the main straight, and this is going to be all dependent on whether he gets a good exit out of the corner. He is a bit far back to get a tow. You kind of look at 0.5 seconds to have a very small effect at least, but if you're trying to cover off the inside line, I would presume, running very, very deep there. Johnson and Ati now 1 second and 0.9 seconds respectively between them. They'll be closing in on these drivers as soon as possible. Sean Olivier, previous lap 1:12.2, so slowing down even more. Kienhoos, same story for him. So they're kind of backing up in the two drivers behind them. Of course, someone that I do need to mention on the YouTube channel who's going to give me all hell if I don't is Cleopas. Also welcome to you. You're also a very big supporter. And then Stephen Castellan saying Division 1 times going down here. Well, not at the moment, but previously, well, Ghost and Olivier kind of had a bit more clean air around them. They were doing much faster times. But now, once they've gotten battling, you can see the momentum kind of breaking, and that's costing the drivers quite a bit of time. Speaking of costing someone time, Olivier losing lots of time there out of Arrabbiata, and Ghost getting very, very close to him. Johnson's now right on the back of them as well, so any mistake from these drivers is going to kind of see a bit of a shuffle happening. Again, running that wide line, trying to optimize for exit speed. But Johnson now very, very, very close to joining the party indeed. Nearly losing it as we switch to him, but he does seem a bit resistant to the commentators because he goes much later on the brakes there, hopefully not compromising his exit. And drivers are going to head down the main straight. Johnson now looking for an opportunity himself. He might smell a place a bit further up the podium, if you would assume. And then now in terms of times, 2:10s for both Johnson and Atinagel, Gijsberg Atinagel. So that battle between Olivier and Ghost is costing them a whole lot of time, and now it's going to be a four-way battle here in the last few laps of the race. I think it's about 3 laps of racing that we've got left. All depends on when Olivier or whoever is out in front is going to cross the line. So if you are only joining now, welcome. It's the Div 2 race. and it is the first race of 2 races. After this, it's going to be reverse grid, so expect things to be shuffled quite a bit for the next running of the Div 2 cars. For now, it's been an exciting race thus far. Kind of a 4-way battle here between Olivier, Ghost, Johnson and Atinagel out in front, as they are having a ball of a time with these cars around Mugello. In 5th position, just again a massive shout out to Dave Brady, who's done a superb job for his first outing here. Just holding onto that 5th position very securely. Right, heading into the final few corners of this lap, and we just want to keep an eye on when they cross the finish line, the start-finish line, because we want to see whether they've got about 2 minutes 10 seconds left or less, because that would mean that it's going to be basically an extra lap after they cross the line. Right, Olivier still leading out in front. He's done a superb job of keeping it consistent under this pressure. He has been running slower times to facilitate that, but that has still kept him out in front. So Ghost now with a very, very definite drive off the back of Olivier there, and this time he's around the outside. So Ghost is going to try and get the overtake done. It's all going to come down to braking and how you manage that momentum coming out of the corner. Ghost going for the switchback. Olivier running towards the outside and the inside of the chicane next, and he's held onto it by a fingernail almost. And such a superb job of just keeping that momentum going, not losing too much through the defense here. Johnson now also smelling blood. Ghost is backed up right against him, 3/10 between them, so any mistake from one of these drivers and he is going to be clean through. Sean Olivier just covering off a bit of the inside line there, just enough to not create a bit of a gap. Ghost nearly losing it on the outside, and he's going to have Johnson on the inside. Johnson positioning himself for the outside on the next corner. He's going to have too much ground to cover. Ghost squeezing him towards the outside. That might have cost him a bit of time. Ghost nearly running off the track and almost losing control. But holding on to that position just yet. Atinagel now into the party here on the inside of Johnson. Johnson unfortunately losing out with that sack of his, and Ati is going to move up in the standings. Meanwhile, Olivier opening up the gap in front, kind of getting a bit of breathing room from this battle going on behind him. But he needs to be careful. Ghost has been released and is close by. Johnson is going to be absolutely trying his best to get back for that 3rd position, and we're going to have I would assume 3 more laps. It's 30 seconds to go, so it all depends on when Sean Olivier crosses that start finish line, on whether we're going to get 2 or a single lap after this. So the time needs to run out before he crosses the line if we want to kind of have the white flag waved for us, and it's going to be very, very close indeed. And Olivier crossing the line, so 2 more laps of racing, and unfortunately for Olivier that is not going to come soon enough. Under massive amounts of pressure, Ghost now getting a bit more of an opportunity with this extra lap of racing, and it's going to be very, very interesting in these final stages. Unfortunately, I think that might be possibly Hildebrandt off track there, letting these guys through, as the front 4 runners now spreading out a little bit, thinking about preserving their current position. But if you're Ghost, that first position is tantalizingly close. Everyone keeping it nice and clean and calm, so we'll see what they are able to do. They are starting to catch up with one another again. Ghost now very close to Olivier, 0.2 tenths through Arabiata 1, and then falling slightly behind. You can see Ghost moving towards the outside of the track, trying to kind of carry as much speed as he possibly can. Ooh, Olivier losing the rear of the car a little bit there. So, again, costing him time. They're now starting to back up together again. This is going to be an extremely exciting final lap. Olivier, again, too close on the curb on the inside there. He's going to back into Goos. And Ati Nagel is looking for an opportunity here. Trying to straight line the chicane as much as possible. Not finding the drive of Goos that he wanted. But now 3/10 between Olivier and Goos only has about 3/10 of breathing room behind him. Unfortunately, Brady there in 5th position, dropping down a position. Lucinia getting past him. Now, Goos on the inside, well, the outside line of Olivier, looking for an opportunity here. Olivier is going to cover off that inside line, and it's all going to depend on who's going to carry as much momentum through there as possible. Goos trying to squeeze Olivier a little bit to restrict his line even more, and Ati Nagel is right there to pick up the pieces if something happens. So again, Goos is going to go for the switchback, and he's going to need a massive drive out of this to secure the position. Olivier running very slow. Ati Nagel having to dodge towards the inside to get past. And unfortunately, that's cost Ati Nagel a bit of time there in the background. Keen Goos moving into 1st position, and Olivier losing it right at the end. And that's going to promote both Jesper Ati Nagel and Johnson into 2nd and 3rd. That is heartbreaking for Olivier, who's kept it together for the entirety of the race, to just lose it on the last lap in the middle of the lap. Goos now absolutely running away with this, but Ati Nagel and Johnson is going to be the battle to watch near the end. So any mistake from Ati Nagel and Johnson is going to be right there to capitalize on it. So Goos now focusing on keeping it neat. You can see he's not using as much of the exits as he previously did. Ati also doing his absolute best to maintain the momentum. I'm not sure exactly what's happening there. I think he might have had a bit of an equipment failure on his part, and Johnson is going to say thank you very much. Sorry but not sorry, and go into that 2nd position. So quite a big shuffle here at the end, and I think if Olivier had just slowed down a little bit, they might have had one less lap. Maybe, all depends. But Goos is going to lead into the final corner, and of course, fingers crossed for him that he keeps it together. But Johnson with an absolute monstrous drive here. I'm not sure why Goos is dropping back. Goos with partial throttle. I'm not sure whether he ran out of fuel there. So your finishers are Johnson, Jesper Ati Nagel, Keen Goos, Sean Olivier. And then Brady is going to move into 5th position, which is he's going to secure it for himself. So massive, well done for you. Leach Senior is going to move into 6th position, securing that for himself. Donnie Stander, 7th position. Making the rounds on the main straight. He's going to come home in 8th position, with Van der Westhuizen very close behind in 9th. Wow, that is quite the way to end it. Absolutely shocked by that result. So the driver's doing a superb job, but yeah, it's so heartbreaking for that mistake from Olivier. He's done such a superb job to keep ahead for the entirety of the race, and just losing it right at the end, that's so tantalizingly close, but also yet so far. Thankfully, the one silver lining is that he is going to be positioned a bit further up the road for that reverse grid start, so he might have the jump on Goos, Ati Nagel and Johnson. I think Goos might be putting a bit more fuel in his car for the next race, so all the drivers learning from it. I'm going to quickly send you to an ad break after we've got host crossing the line. Unfortunately, Hildebrand, having some technical issues, had to disconnect. But I'll send you to an ad break, and then we'll be right back with the reverse grid for these drivers. Welcome back, ladies and gentlemen. We are back on the grid with the drivers. Thankfully, no bunnies on track this time. And things are looking interesting for the start right here. We did have a bit of information from Melvin Goos, Keen Goos's father. So he says Keen just pulled over to not mess with the championship points too much, since he's kind of been away from it for a little bit. So massive respect for him for not wanting to cause too much chaos of his opponents. Now off the start, and there's going to be Harvey, unfortunately not getting the best of starts there, as the drivers pile on through. Unfortunately, our cameraman not being positioned as well as we would want him. So Harvey regaining the position on the inside, and outside of him is going to be Ran van der Westhuizen, right behind them Hilke Weringa as well, and a massive shuffling of the pack. Van der Westhuizen, being the one moving up into first with a drive there around the outside. Van Beek in third, doing a superb job, and the rest of the field kind of split there behind them. Ati unfortunately dropping further down the pack. I'm not exactly sure what happened to him. It does look like a mistake on his part. Sean Ullapi also off the track there, so the previous front runner is having an absolute terrible time there with some unforced errors. Van der Westhuizen leading the race now with Goos already behind him, but that's going to be Harvey Goos. So many Gooses in this race at the moment. And there's another one in the YouTube chat. There in the background, I think that might have been, unfortunately, Harvey Goos spinning off the track, and that is a very difficult position to be in. He's done a very good job of kind of keeping out of the way, just staying still so that everyone can get past, and then he's going to rejoin. Interesting though, we've got Goos and Goos at the rear end of the pack. Van der Westhuizen is now leading solidly there out in front. Johnson moving up into fifth. He's probably going to be the biggest winner out of this entire situation, although it does look like Ati has moved up with him. How he's managed that, I have absolutely no idea. Johnson on the inside here of Stander, and he's going to move up ahead into fourth position. Things are already looking good there for Johnson. Stander kind of creating the barriers so that he can get away from Ati Nagel behind him. Willifree also in seventh, so even though the start looked a bit rough, they've still retained a reasonable position in the pack. Oh, and that's a massive drift there from Stander, and unfortunately losing it off the track. I'm not exactly sure whether it was a different driver losing the rear and bumping into him. It was a bit too quick for me to see. But now out in front, Van der Westhuizen comfortably leading. Van Wyk, Brady in third position. That's a bit of a surprise. Doing a superb job there. You can see him moving down the first corner. And then Johnson and Attie having a bit of a fight here behind them. Further down the pack, Andre Hildebrandt and Leach Sr. also very close together and within striking distance of one another. So Hildebrandt is going to do his absolute best. He does seem to have sorted out the equipment troubles that he had before. So he is back and in fighting shape. So looking forward to seeing him racing out on the track. Attinagel now falling slightly behind Sean Johnson. I think he might have realized that Johnson has a good fair amount of pace in hand. So he's just going to try and minimize the pressure that he's got on him so that they can maybe catch up with the front end of the pack. Meanwhile, speaking of people catching up, Brady, Dave Brady, now looking at the rear of Van Wyk here. As he's closed the position down a little bit. Van Wyk getting a better exit out of the Arbiata corners. And I think this is not going to help Brady's case. Running off the grass, I think that might be a bit of commentator's pressure there. So we'll maybe switch to a different driver and give Brady a bit of room there. So unfortunately he's not going to get too much room as Johnson and Attinagel are going to be pulling up behind him. Both of them lining up for an overtaking opportunity, and it does look like Attie is giving Johnson a bit of room so that they can maneuver their way up the pack and then expect the fighting to maybe start 5 minutes from the end. But now with 15 minutes to go, there's still a lot that can happen. I see Tommy Leary Moss saying, dodge him much? Well, if you can dodge an MX5, then you can probably dodge a ball as well. Fastest lap for Sean Johnson, so he's absolutely flying out in front of Attinagel. Might even be that Attie might not have an answer for that pace, but there is still a bit of speed left in the tank. Maybe a few tenths here and there. Out in front, Brady now running on the inside. Johnson going around the outside and now positioning himself quite nicely for the next few turns. So moving around the pack, Johnson moving into second. He quickly jumped there. Sean Olivier also coming into the mix there behind. Oh, and that's going to be a squeeze 3 wide, and unfortunately the 3 cars of Brady, Olivier and Attinagel all coming together. That's going to be very unfortunate for the 3 of them and very frustrating. And I think Rian is probably the one that's benefiting the most from this, because he's going to just extend that lead of himself even more. Marius van Wyk also very lucky out of that entire situation. Kind of the person just driving away from the fireball behind them as that chaos just ensued going into the corner. Just 3 drivers squeezing one another too much. Andre Hildebrandt also very lucky in regards to that. Now in 4th position with Leach, the 2nd down the road. The first driver to really recover from that incident being Brady, who's now sitting in 6th. Oh, and a massive drift from Hildebrandt. Just a bit too much curb, and that car just rotates way too much. And that's going to be a slowdown all the way down to the front stretch. Brady moving back into 5th. And now Hildebrandt might have even more to deal with, as he's got Keen Goos behind him. And Keen being very, very close behind, so he's going to be very pressured to keep it very tidy for the next few corners. Jan van der Westhuizen is absolutely on his own, 5 seconds down the road from Johnson. And Van der Westhuizen is just trying to keep it as neat and tidy as possible. He has shown that he can really benefit from these reverse grid races, especially if he gets a bit of a gap built up, and the fighting behind him kind of costs different drivers time. Leach Senior and Brady now in a bit of a scrap as they go into the second sector of the, well, go up towards the second sector of the circuit. And Brady has a fair amount of pace in hand, so he's going to try and get this move done as quickly as possible. He's got Goos breathing down his neck, and what if he a bit further down the road as well? You can see him absolutely just hanging it out on the outside curb there in the background. Brady now not really finding a place where he's got that much speed in comparison to Leach Senior, and that is holding him up a little bit. You can see King Goos nearly going on the grass there. I think we might have had a bit of a slowdown from one of the drivers in front. I heard someone spinning their car, but I'm not seeing someone drop down the standings. Brady now under pressure from Goos here. Goos trying to go around the outside. It's going to be his signature switchback. Hopefully he doesn't get held up at the apex, and it does seem like he was just timing that incorrectly slightly. But he's still got a few turns to really get it done. Big shout out to the SRAC drivers that have been driving here for us, and the support that they've been having in the YouTube chat. You can see there Cleopas shouting for them. And now Goos getting past Brady there, and Brady is going to see if we can find something on the inside. I'm not sure why these drivers are so keen on going this deep on the inside. Maybe with that kink, it does position yourself a bit differently. Brady is going to try and squeeze Goos on the outside, and then and understeers into the side of Goos. Goos is going to hang back a little bit, so just wait for Brady to make a mistake while he's flustered. But that is a bit of a rough one. Unfortunately, Williford dropping down the standings, he's gone off track and is now slowly rejoining. So not the best race for Williford. Goos now again looking for an opportunity here on Brady, and just utilizing so much of that track exit. Brady again just positioning himself on the inside of Arrabbiata. Well, not Arrabbiata, so we're still before that. I think it's Casanova. Just slightly on the inside of Casanova, just restricting that momentum. Goos is going to try and go around the outside. There's a bit of a switcheroo, not enough of a gap on the inside for him to utilize, but he's going to hang it around the outside, try and get the momentum through there. And unfortunately, Brady just running defensive enough on the inside to put a stop to that. Goos is going to position himself for another get-go. Atinagel making the pass on the inside on Hildebrandt as he moves back on the field. Out in front, Sean Johnson is now caught up with Van der Westhuizen, and the battle is on for first position. So if you've just joined us, welcome to those of you joining us. We are currently in the second race for the Div 2 drivers, and then after that we'll have Div 1. But for now it is the reverse grid. Johnson trying to get the lead from Van der Westhuizen, who's been leading right from the start, who's benefited massively from the reverse grid. Johnson now positioning himself on the outside to get the drive off that first corner. You can see they're already doing a superb lap time there, 2:10. But Westhuizen is going to find himself restricted on the inside and nearly losing the back of the car. That inside curve does tend to grab the car, so you can utilize it to rotate the car if you're very accurate, but it's not going to be the best thing to do. So Johnson moving up into first position. Person that would like to move up even further is Leach Senior, who's looking at that third position battling with Van Beek. Further behind that battle between Grady and Goos. Unfortunately, Leach running off the track, losing control of the car, and that's going to promote both Goos and Brady as they move on up. Goos getting the position on Brady, and Brady is going to have to kind of tuck in behind him and live to fight another day. So lots of drivers kind of switching around. There was a fair bit of chaos at the start of the reverse grid, with some drivers unfortunately getting squeezed in a 3-wide situation into the Arrabbiata corners, and that has cost them quite a bit. The person that probably benefited the most is going to be Van der Westhuizen and Johnson out in front. Van der Westhuizen absolutely running away from the chaos behind him in the start of the race. Goes now again around the outside, and the outside lines on this track do seem to be very, very powerful. Goes now positioned for the inside of the chicane. He's going to lose a bit of speed on exit, and Van Wyk is going to move up ahead, and Brady is there to pick up the pieces. Now Goes and Brady side by side into the final corner. Goes very restricted on the inside line, but he is going to have the full racing line available and tuck in behind Van Wyk. He's going to again try and charge on through on the inside. Thankfully he doesn't need to run as close as he previously did, although someone that was looking at it was Brady. Now Brady moving towards the outside. Goes is still restricting himself quite a bit there on the inside line, so we'll see if he's able to keep the momentum going. Brady running very wide, the car understeering, and I think that might have opened the door for Van Wyk slightly, as these drivers are battling it out. 5 minutes left, and I think we are still going to see a fair bit of action, especially with Brady and Goes battling as they move up along the pack. But Van der Westhuizen does have a big advantage over them, so unless there's a mistake, they're not going to be catching up with him. Attenagel also closing in on this battle between Brady and Van Wyk, with Goes running ahead slightly. But I think that might have only been because Brady is now slightly distracted with Van Wyk behind him. Out in front, Johnson just absolutely having a blast on his own. Goes again under pressure here from Brady, as you can see him in his rearview mirror. And you can imagine how much pressure you feel. Goes being one of the youngest drivers on the grid. I'm not exactly sure how old he is, but his father, Melvin Goes, does drive in the Div 1 races, and we had the pleasure of seeing how Goes developed during the course of the season. Right, so behind him Brady and Van Wyk are coming to blow, or not coming to blows yet, but just coming to terms with their position. I'm wondering how much these drivers are thinking about self-preservation at the moment. It does look like we've got about 3 laps of running left, possibly 2 if the times are slightly slower. Slightly faster. So we'll see when Johnson crosses that line and triggers that final lap, but it needs to be after the timer has run out. Laps around here kind of taking 2 minutes 10 seconds, with Johnson on his previous lap doing a 2:11.259, so slightly slower than usual. Attenagel and Marius Van Wyk swapping around positions. Van Wyk not having an answer for that pace from Atti, as Atti's on the drive back from that previous situation in Arrabbiata. Van Wyk hopefully trying to catch a bit of a draft and see where he can find a few tenths. If he's able to stick behind Attenagel, he's going to be able to open up that gap between himself and Hildebrand. The rest of the pack kind of settling into their positions. And again, unfortunately, Williford getting the short end of the stick for this race, and previous race also being a bit of a heartbreaker, as he just lost it right at the end of the race on the last lap after leading it so nicely for the majority of the race. Well, the entirety of the race up to that point. Van Westhuizen still holding on to that second position, so he's done an absolute superb job with this race. And that's going to be a healthy injection of points for his championship fight. And all going to depend on where who he's currently aiming at to beat in the championship. Hildebrand still a bit down the road from Van Wyk, but Van Wyk has lost touch with Atinagel, so Hildebrand is closing in on him a little bit. Host with a 209.645. That is absolutely ludicrous. I think that might have been the fastest lap of the race, and looking at my charts, that is indeed the case. Hildebrand moving up on the inside of Van Wyk into that first corner, kind of catching him on the apex, slowing him down slightly. And that's going to be Hildebrand moving into 6th position. Van Westhuizen not getting much screen time, even though he's been running in 2nd place, or in 1st and then 2nd for the majority of the race. He's just kind of clocked out and had his own race. Kind of feels like he was just hot lapping for the majority of this race. But he's done very well to keep it consistent, to keep it clean, and that is going to be points in the bag for him. Now looking at Sean Johnson as he tries to close off the rest of the race, and still 40 seconds left. One would imagine that he's going to cross the line before that, so 2 more laps of racing left for us here at Mugello with the MX5s for Division 2. Gijsbert Atinagel moving into 4th position. I suspect that might have been a mistake from Brady. Just quickly having a look at Johnson as he now runs up towards the start-finish line. We'll see where the seconds take us. He's still going to keep it flat, so... and he crosses the line 2 seconds before the countdown timer ends. So he clearly still wants to keep racing. A minor lift would already reduce the race distance by just a lap. And I suspect for a few of the drivers here, that's going to be a bit too much. As they just want to maybe hold on to their positions as is. Brady's less than a second down the road from Atinagel in a battle for 4th position, with the rest of the pack kind of spread out far enough that you can't really expect any battles to develop, but Ati is going to be forced to keep it clean for 2 more laps, and he is going to be absolutely sweating. And in this case it does look like he's got his foot down as well. So about 6/10 faster than Brady in that first sector, so he is opening up the gap a little bit. But every corner is an opportunity for disaster to strike, as we saw in the previous race. So very, very close. Goes in a stellar 3rd position, everything considered for this race. And I think Van Westhuizen is going to be sweating a little bit. Johnson did make a mistake somewhere. Looking at the time, he's now only 1.5 seconds ahead of Van Westhuizen. So he made a mistake somewhere. That gap was not as large previously. And I think that might have been the 2nd sector of the track. Where he's kind of 3 seconds slower than Van Westhuizen was. So That was around the Arrabbiata corners, I think. That something might have happened. Maybe stepping a wheel a bit too far on the outside. If he had slacked down slightly, this race would have been over, but it is going to be another lap of racing. So white flag is out. And Van der Westhuizen is possibly smelling an opportunity here if Johnson is going to make any more mistakes. Kingo's also putting the foot down, absolutely charging on the previous lap. Again with a 209.618, so absolutely flying. And that end of the race can't come sooner for Van der Westhuizen, as he's just going to try and hold on to this position and also keep himself in contention for that first position. Johnson does seem to have gotten the foot down a bit better now, but this next sector is going to be the scary one for Johnson. And Van der Westhuizen also getting the foot down. You can see him finding 3/10 on his best time for this race. So he's going to be absolutely fighting tooth and nail for this. It's one slight slowdown and that might compromise your position. Speaking of it, Van der Westhuizen running deep on the curb, unsettling the car, and that's cost him a whole bunch of momentum. So now it's going to be about 3-4 more corners, depends on how you count the chicane. And one hairpin less, Van Westhuizen still holding on to that position. He's going to be extremely happy with this if he can hold on. So one more turn. And he just needs to keep it clean. Post behind him, just in touch if something happens, but settling into that third position. Johnson getting a clean drive. Oh, sorry, Van Westhuizen getting a clean drive. So Johnson is going to come across the line for a first position, even though he had a bit of a scare earlier. And Van der Westhuizen settling into that second position. He's going to be extremely happy with that. Again, Goos pulling off the track. He's been absent for a fair part of the championship, so he doesn't want to upset the results too much. Just pulling off safely and letting Attinagel and Brady through. Brady is going to be very happy with that fourth position, and Hildebrandt as well, not being able to finish the previous race due to some equipment troubles, and he's done very well. Attinagel giving us the customary victory donuts, trying to spot the other driver that's also been doing it. Not exactly sure who's been spinning around. So a few more drivers to come on around. Leach Senior, Goos and Stander will still come home in 10th, and then 11th and 12th. But it's been an absolute blast with these Div 2 drivers. I'm just quickly making a note. So we'll quickly see if we can get some of the drivers to have a bit of an interview with us. And then we also just need to check when the Div 1 drivers are going with their race. But for now, I'll be back in a few seconds. So let's see if we can get a few of the guys to chat with us. Welcome back, everyone. So I've quickly got Sean Johnson here with me in the interview room, and Sean, you're probably smiling from ear to ear. Two pole or two first position finishes. You're probably very happy with how it turned out.
Yes, thanks, Sean. Yeah, no, it was a really good race. I joined both the races.
And then from your side, that battle with everyone in the first race, I mean, that looked very hectic in those last few laps. Any anything that you want to say about that? How that felt from your perspective?
Yeah, no, it was really hectic. That yeah, the guys were really running fast. Keenan was doing a really good job. I'm actually just he shouldn't have actually pulled out at the end there and let us win. I mean, he should have taken the win. He deserved it. He rode really well. Yeah, I know the guys, we had a good battle there. Some guys made mistakes at the end. Yeah, that gave me the opportunity there to get past.
Yeah, I think he, from what his father says, he just didn't want to upset the championship. So I think he noted the position and then made the grid settle without him kind of present in it. But that looked like some fun racing there at the end. So it was an absolute joy watching it. Just from your side, any shout outs, people supporting you that you want to mention?
I just really to the guys that watch the channel. That I mean, it's great having guys watching, and then also the guys that are driving with us. I mean, it's really a good bunch of guys, and we had a really nice, clean race tonight. I don't know what happened at the back. I saw there was a couple of little tangles. I don't think anybody did it on purpose. Let's see a couple of guys spin off, but yeah, no, we had some good racing.
Yeah, so what happened there was some drivers just went 3 wide into the Arrabbiata corners, and I think one of them tried to squeeze the cars towards the outside, and that kind of just brought all of them together. But yeah, that is kind of one of those racing incidents, kind of the risks of running 3 wide if you're not careful. But thank you so much, and again, massive congrats. And then just before we head to the Div 1 race, we have Rian van der Westhuizen here with us. Van der Westhuizen benefiting very much from that reverse grid, but also proving his worth and holding on to that first position. That was an absolute stellar job for that second race. You must probably be very happy with how it turned out, Rian.
Yeah, it was nice. I was slower than the other 4 guys in front of me. So it's basically a second slower than they were. But yeah, it was nice keeping it and just concentrating to the laps together. And check how Sean is into that lead. Fully came past me.
Yeah, and I mean, that consistency really paid off, especially there at the end. You probably started feeling the pressure as Keen was closing in on behind you. What was that last lap like like for you? Was it feeling like the race was just 1 lap too long?
I thought I just had a nice with and playing with the consistency. I saw Sean made a mistake, so I wasn't actually concentrating on.
So looking a bit further down the road, and just positioning yourself for if there's another mistake. Yeah, there was an absolute stellar job and massive congrats. Any shout outs from your side for people supporting you that you want to say thanks to?
I don't know there are many people supporting me, but the people supporting the channel, shout out to them. It's nice having a race with all the people watching it.
That's definitely fun. I agree with you. It's always nice if you're in one of the developing divisions to really see people participate as much as they do here. But yeah, thank you so much, Rian and Sean. We're going to head off to the Div 1 race. So thankfully your time to sweat is done, but it is now time for the other drivers to really feel the pressure. They're just finishing up with their practice session. So I'm going to send you guys to a quick ad break, and then we'll be right back with Division 1 with the MX5s on Mugello.
Thanks, guys. Thanks, Sean. Nice race.
Thanks, Sean. Good race. Cheers, Sean.
Cheers, guys. Welcome back, ladies and gentlemen. We are back with the Div 1 drivers. We finally got one of those stray cars into the pits. Unfortunately, his communication with the pit wall was a bit hampered. But he got in on time, and we are getting going with qualifying. So it's going to be interesting to see how the times compare to those of the Div 2 drivers. And I can imagine some of these guys just happy to get onto the track now. They've been practicing for about an hour just before this, just warming up for the race to come, and of course a bunch of practice before that as well. But now setting up for qualifying, so I can finally take you through this again. I was muted last time I tried and do this. So Dennis Mitchell not running away with the championship, just comfortably leading with a 109.0, and Dylan Fazaki breathing down his neck with a 106.0. So these two drivers battling out for the championship lead. Then Peter Grobler also very, very close indeed with a 102.2. Then James Leach Jr., Tommy Leary Moss, Donnie van der Rooyen, Ian Upton, Richard van Heerden, Melvin Goos, James Crook, Mornay Deploy, Michael Rust, all making up those first 12. Then Herman Nieuwoud, Alistair Barnard, Stephen Castellan, Robert Franco, Sean Johnson, Rian van der Westhuizen, Peter Gallenay. So you'll see a few of the Div 2 drivers in here as well. It's the same leaderboard for all of them. Maurice van Wyk, Timo Smit, Steven Sparks, Andre Hildebrand, Gijsbert Atinagel in 24th. Then Craig Wesley, Sean Willefeer, James Leach Sr., Renier Leach, Eric Leitwanger, Donnie Stander, Matt Williams, Tian Mare, Ilke Werenga, Willem Stein, Ross Heeman, Keen Goos into 36. So you can see if some of the drivers kind of miss a few races, they drop down in the standings quite a bit. And then Gabi Goos, John Baton, Sean Webber, Dennis Knutse, Basil van Rijn, Dean van Wyk, Stuart Mack, and Nico Smit, rounding out with 44 drivers. It's an absolute ton of people participating in this race. Looking at the track, we are at Mugello in Italy. The Tuscan Grand Prix was here in 2020, and you remember that absolute chaos that happens in this race for the F1 cars. So into the run for San Donato. You kind of want to carry the speed through there, so the inside line might not be the best line to be on unless you squeeze the other driver towards the outside. Then followed by Luco Poggio Secco, Matarassi, and then San Lorenzo, that chicane leading up to Casanova. In the second sector, Savelli, Arrabbiata 1 and 2, of course being very high speed for these cars. Well, I say high speed, as far as your poor Mazda MX5 can go. But Arrabbiata 1 and 2 being almost flat for these drivers, it would seem. And then into the chicane of Scarperia and Pelagio, followed by the hairpin of Coranteo and Biondetti 1 and 2. That chicane, well, a slight chicane just before the Bucine hairpin at the end of the lap, and that's going to be extremely important since you've then got the massive straight leading up to back to the San Donato corner. 5.245 kilometers. It's about 2 minutes 10 seconds for these drivers, so we'll see what they are able to do with these cars. They've gotten around the track a few times, so they'll now be on their fast laps. And we've been on board with Dennis Mitchell so much, I do apologize, but we are going to jump to a different driver. Or try to. So Peter Grobler coming across the hill now for his fast lap. Normally the timing board is behind slightly by 1 lap, so it is on the second valid lap that the times start piling in. At the moment, I do not have the times with me. I'll just bear with me for a second as I reload the timing page. Grobler finding time 3/10 now, and only a few turns into the corner, into the track already. So finding heaps of time, and he is going to look very solid indeed. Right, I have the times up, kind of the unofficial ones, and Stephen Castellan is currently sitting with a previous lap of a 2:10 flat. So that is going to be the time that these drivers are going to try and beat. For now, we're on board with Peter Grobler as he makes his way around the Arrabbiata corner and up towards the chicane right here, using way too much of the inside line there, unsettling the car completely off the curbs. That's going to cost him a heaps of time, and he's going to have to improve his lap in the final few corners. Well, 10 points for style there as he drifts around. Of course, it's not going to be the fastest way around there, but it is the most fun you can have around that corner, I would imagine. So definitely not the fastest corner for him, but doing a superb job. Timo Smith finding some time here. Hopefully he doesn't get held up too much by the cars in front of him, but they do seem to be a fair way down the track. You can see the white and purple car of Tommy Leary Moss in the foreground. Right, so times are coming up on the board, and you can see that 2:10 flat from Castellan. No one's beat it yet. Then Mitchell overtaking him. First driver into the 209s, 209.7. Timo Smith closely following him with a 209.804. Looking very, very solid indeed. Closest driver to that party is going to be Robert Franco. Unfortunately, no improvement for him on this lap. So he's got Mitchell, Castellan and Smith in front of him. Richard van Heeren, they're catching a bit of a draft from Tommy Leary Moss. And then Ross Heeman jumping into 4th position with a 2:10.193. That is going to look like the time to beat. Unfortunately, we lost one of our drivers due to Telkom, so we'll wait for him to connect again. Someone just needs to tell Richard van Heeren and Tommy Leary Moss that they are not in the race yet. They're in qualifying. They are extremely close together. So Richard van Heeren, and he's going to collide with Tommy Leary Moss. Tommy unfortunately losing a bit of grip there on the outside, and that has slightly ruined his qualifying chances. He's not going to have time to go around again. Peter Grobler finding a bit more time, this time not drifting around. Finally got Dennis Mitchell back on board with us, so he's still in pole with that 209.700. And I just quickly want to look for something, because there we go. So just a quick shout out. If I remember this correctly, Tom Leary Moss has got a company, KDP. You can see their logo up there on the right hand side of the screen. So that's Cosmo Design and Print, as you can also clearly see on his car. He has been gracious enough to gift us a trophy for the first position in this championship, and it's an absolutely beautiful trophy. So looking forward to seeing who's going to walk away with that one, but there is still a lot of racing to happen. Quite a few, quite a lot that can still happen in between. Right, so Dennis Mitchell sitting in the pits. He's going to be absolutely content with what he's done. Castellan is not going to find the time to come across the start-finish line, so unless the stewards grant him that opportunity of another lap. Timo Smith finding a bit of time, so that is 1/10 in hand at the start of the lap. So hopefully still a bit more of an opportunity. Someone doing a bit of rallycross there in the background, going way off track. So yeah, session is now ending for qualifying. Mitchell is going to say, I'm very happy with that 209.7, and we'll see what can happen. Also, welcome to Atinahol, one of our drivers from the previous race. Welcome to the YouTube chat. And he's going to look forward to seeing what these drivers can manage on the track where he's just been battling so furiously with the other drivers on track. So, Timo Smith only finding a small amount of time. This is going to be the last few turns. He is only going to need a 10. So we'll see where he ends up in regards to Castellan. Castellan is probably not on a very fast lap at the moment, by the looks of things on my unofficial timing tower. Peter Grobler, way out of nowhere with the 209.612, jumping into first position. that's come out of the blue, but well done to you, Peter. And Timo Smith moving into second position, moving past Mitchell, finding that last few tenths in the end of the lap. Castellan still has an opportunity here, so almost 2 tenths in pocket. We'll see what he's able to pull off here. I see Gerrit Snijman saying Timo pole incoming. Unfortunately, the session has ended, but he's gotten as close as possible in second position. So still on the front row of the grid, and he can be very happy with that. Unfortunately, Castellan losing out a bit of time, and I think that might be too much. We'll see. We'll stick with one more corner because he is right on the cusp of it. And a good exit can actually move him up another position if he is careful. You can see he's trying to get as much out of that car as possible. Unfortunately, with a nice amount of mid-corner speed, but he didn't carry it through to the exit, so he'll be lucky if he gets a 100th out of this. And the drivers are now ending the qualifying session. So, Peter Grobler, Timo Smith, and Dennis Mitchell, the 3 front positions on the grid. I'm going to quickly send you to an ad break, and then we'll be right back for race 1 with the Div 1 race here at Mugello. Welcome back, ladies and gentlemen. We are on the grid. We've got most of the drivers ready to get going. So to make sure that my car is not stuck on the grid, otherwise we're going to have a bit of a chicane right at the start, and we do not want that. So everyone revving the engines, ready to get going for this exciting Div 1 race. If the Div 2 race was anything to go by, this is going to be quite the battle. So 3 lights, 4 lights, 5 lights. Lights out, and we are off. So superb start there for Peter Grobler as he gets going right ahead of the pack there. You can see him just chasing off into the distance, and he is going to come across the hill, securing his position for the start. Timo Smith and Dennis Mitchell having a bit of a battle there. Castle unfortunately dropping back in the standings slightly. So Smith with a big winner out of this, and Mitchell right behind him, ready to pick up the pieces. Castellan and Himman now in a bit of a battle here. Castellan just pulling ahead slightly in a very, very solid position there. So he's going to settle into the rhythm for the race as they continue on through. Slightly behind, I think there's actually Richard van Heerden getting into a slight battle there with Goos as the drivers pile on through. So there in the background, you can see, I think that might have been Franco trying to get the pass done on Rust, and unfortunately causing himself a bit of a lapse in time. Ian Upton getting squeezed here from both sides as he is following him on very closely now into the final sector of the track. It's going to be the chicane in front of them, trying to just poke the nose on the inside, get a bit of pressure on him and see if he can force an error from his opponent. He just needs to be careful. He's got Melvin Goos right behind him. So a different Goos. Too many of you guys had some experience in South Africa, but it's always a welcome sight. Goos now moving up on the inside of Upton, getting the move done, but Upton is going to try and come back. He isn't going to have the pace for the chicane, and Upton is going to move up ahead. Franco making the move stick on Rust there in the background, and unfortunately that is Rust doing a bit of rat cross there in the background, losing control of his car. Out in front, we've got Peter Grobler channeling his inner Senna as he is just moving as fast as possible. 0.5 seconds up the track from Timo Smith. A bit further behind, Stephen Castellan and Dennis Mitchell are having an outright battle here. Mitchell on the inside, running defensively. Castellan is going to see if he can get the momentum going. Dennis controlling that inside line, and is not going to give the space for Castellan to make the swap around. So Castellan is going to have to look for a different opportunity to get that move to stick. Further up ahead, Timo Smith now catching up with Peter Grobler. 0.3 seconds between them, very, very close together. And the rest of the pack keeping in touch with one another. No one above a second in difference up until 9th position. So everyone very, very close together. One mistake and you are going to lose quite a few positions. So Smith now settling a bit further behind. And the rest of the drivers piling on through as they go through the Arbiata corners. It may sound like I'm only remembering these two corners, but that's because it's probably one of my favorite pastas and the only thing I can properly pronounce. Now Mitchell and Castellan still in the fight, but Mitchell is looking at an opportunity here on Timo Smith. Very close together. He's going to just poke the nose on the inside, maybe force Timo to kind of make a mistake if he's not careful. And then now 4 tenths between them, very, very, very close between these drivers. Grobler still hanging on to that first position, but he is under immense pressure as Timo Smith charges on behind him. Timo very aware that he needs to get this overtake done if he doesn't want to come under pressure from Mitchell. Mitchell, of course, our championship leader, and Smith going up towards the inside with a bit of a drive here on Grobler. So we'll see if he's able to carry that speed. Oh, and he's going to squeeze Grobler way to the outside, try and get as much of the corner opened up for himself as possible, and I think that might be the move done. If Grobler is not careful, he's going to have Mitchell trying to sneak on through, but Grobler is going to stick in it, and he's going to try and get the pass done on the chicane. Unfortunately, Smith losing speed on the curb, and that's Mitchell on through, and possibly Castellan. So Smith losing out massively there on the curbs. Now Grobler in first position, but Mitchell is going to look on the inside, just show the nose a little bit. I can only imagine the stress that Grobler is yet again feeling as he retakes the first position. All the cars in the front four positions staying very nice and close together, and then there's a big mid-pack group right behind them, led by him, and I think. But for now, we've got this battle for the lead. So Mitchell just keeping in touch with Grobler in front of him. He needs to be very careful. He needs to pick his attack quite wisely. You do not want to end up in the situation that Smith found himself in. Make a mistake on the curb or get some bad exit out of the corner, and then suddenly you're losing out to the two other drivers who are towing on through behind you. Grobler holding on to that lead as well as he can. So Mitchell trying to get the drive out of this corner. And that is a disconnection from Mitchell. So unfortunately his internet connection is not going to play along. And he's jumped straight to the pits. Although I didn't see a notification of him disconnecting from the race. It might be that he accidentally triggered the car to jump to the pits, which would be highly unfortunate. It doesn't look like an equipment failure because it was right there like instantly, so I'm not exactly sure what happened there. And there he's disconnected, so unfortunately not the best race from a technical perspective for Mitchell, and that's going to hurt his championship fight. Now Grobler is starting to extend that lead of his a little bit. Castellan and Smith are neck and neck as they battle here out in front. Castellan doing a superb job of getting into that position in the first place. Smith unfortunately losing out on the chicane a little bit earlier in the race. Not a massive mistake, but it's just enough to get those cars moved on through along your inside. A bit further down the pack, while things are cooling down out in front, we've got Upton, Heman and Versaghi, and then Franco behind them, all in a very close fight here for the middle of the pack. Upton holding onto that fifth position for dear life. And Heman is not going to make it easy for him, but for now Versaghi is going to make Heman's life difficult as he starts looking for a gap. But hopefully on Upton's part that is going to play in his favor. So Versaghi sticking to the rear of Heman's car. Heman now making a move on the inside of Upton. It's not going to get the drive that he would want for that corner, but it is going to be a draft and a drag race down the main start-finish stretch. Almost a bit like the DRS train that you would get in Formula 1, that you get these drafting trains. Heman now moving towards the outside, and Versaghi is going to try and follow him on through. Although that is a bit of an odd line to pick. as Fasaki tries to go even further on the inside. That's not the best idea, guys. Himon slightly pulling ahead of Upton there through the corner. They're going to be 3 wide for the chicane. Hopefully someone backs out, otherwise we're going to be in the world of hurt. Fasaki losing a bit of time there, now under pressure from Franco, slightly behind them. Franco getting the drive. Fortunately, doesn't have a stretch of road to really capitalize on it. And Fasaki is going to be safe for a few more corners. But now, heading up towards the Arrabbiata corners. And they're in the background, Rust and Van Heeren switching places. They're a bit too far back that we can really see them. But for now, the battle is here between Himan, Upton, Fasaki and Franco. One mistake from one of these drivers and they're losing out massively. Franco looking for... Sorry, not Franco. Upton, Fasaki looking for an opportunity here on Upton. Not going to find it. He's going to have to fall back in line for the next few corners. These hairpins can be very, very tricky, but a good overtaking opportunity if you can get the drive. Fasaki slightly held up on the apex by Upton, and you can see him dropping behind a little bit. Franco just sticking there for any kind of chaos that might ensue from this. Fasaki quick to assume the racing line on the outside, just in case he pulls out ahead. And they are going to run side by side. Slightly ahead, Goos and Smit swapping positions. And Fasaki and Franco now also running side by side down the straight. And it's going to be a bit of a drag race. Fasaki getting a bit of a tow from, I think that's Upton in front of him. Now getting the pass, Donald Franco. They want to run through wide into the first corner. Whether they're going to back out will remain to be seen. And thankfully we're getting through close cleanly, although Upton almost getting held up on the apex there by Fasaki. Out in front. The pack has closed down considerably. Grobler still leading and Castellan still in second, but Goos and Smit having an outright battle here. So that's going to be Smit moving up on the inside of Goos and just absolutely parking it on the apex. That's some superb car control from Goos, making sure he doesn't run into his opponent. Now getting squeezed slightly towards the outside through the Arrabbiata corners. Out in front, Grobler and Castellan also battling it out. So even though Smit and Goos are going to fall behind a little bit with this battle of theirs, that battle in front is going to help them stay in touch with the leading cars. Was looking for an opportunity here along the outside. Smit is going to hold on to the inside line and just hold on to as much momentum as is possible. Franco and Upton again swapping out, so that battle between 6th, 7th, 8th really heating up here in the middle part of the race. 7 minutes left of the racing. So if the drivers want to make a move, they are going to have to start thinking about where to execute it. Probably doing a superb job here in first. Hopefully he is, well, for his part, he's hoping on that battle behind him to allow him to open up the gap. You can see him doing a 2:10.490, so he still needs to dip into those 209s that we saw him do earlier during the evening. Not finding it. Smit and Castellan swapping around in the hairpin at the end of the straight. So Smit moving up a bit in the world. And now he'll be fighting hard to open up that gap. Castellan is not going to make it easy for him though. And you can see Castellan just showing the nose a little bit, just getting the pressure on. Goos taking an adventurous line over the curb. He needs to be careful that he doesn't lose control of the car. You can see him almost going into the gravel trap there at at the corner. Now into the Arbiato corners, and Smith is losing out a bit on the Krobler in front of him. 1.2 seconds. Sorry, not 1 minute. Apologies. But Krobler now opening up that gap a little bit, as these three still continue fighting behind him for position. Further down the pack, Fazaki and Franco now spreading out a bit. Heman as well. So everyone now settling into their positions a little bit. And 5 minutes of racing left to go, so it's always interesting on this track to kind of guess how many laps of racing you've got left. But I would expect about, let's say 4 laps of racing left for these drivers. Krobler is just going to hope that that checkered flag comes as soon as possible. And Castellan and Goos now battling out here behind them. Castellan on the inside line, Goos getting the driver along the outside, and he's going to be able to close off that line by the end of the straight. It all depends on how hard Castellan is on the brakes. He is not going to have an opportunity to make a move. Goos sliding out the rear of the car, losing time, and Castellan nearly pulling alongside him, having to slam on the brakes there as Goos reassumes the racing line. So Goos breathing a sigh of relief as the immediate danger is over. He's got Castellan breathing down his neck. That's a big save from Goos' part. And he's probably going to be shaking a little bit from that unless he's got nerves of absolute steel. Now into the 2 Arbiato corners. And they just spread out nicely again. A bit further down the back, Richard van Heeren is having an absolute blast of a time here with Michael Rust in front of him. Ooh, and a bit of a netcode issue, and that's sent Van Heeren off the track. And that's something that he's not going to enjoy that much. Unfortunately, losing out of position due to that. That is the unfortunate nature of these online racing events. You can't always guarantee that someone will have the best connection, and you might lose out because of that. So Heman here in 6th position. They've spread out a little bit. Goos trying to gun it around the outside. We'll see how good of an exit he gets here on Timo Smith. You can see he's already closing down that gap a little bit. So he's got a bit of a drive here. It looks like he's got a fair amount of closing speed. It is a very long straight. And he's going to try and dart around to the inside. He saw Krobler there taking the line. And he's going to assume the inside line for the hairpin at the end of the straight. Smith trying to get a drive back. He's going to come back at him on the outside, not going to find the opportunity. And he's going to fall back in line. Meanwhile, Krobler is smiling all the way out in front. With this battle happening behind him, it's definitely counting in his favor at this point. Castellan also sitting there in 4th position, just waiting for that mistake to happen. Goos drifting it around the corner and unfortunately losing time. So Smith trying to dart towards the inside, just showing the nose, putting on the pressure. And Goos is not having none of that. So previously, I did see Timo Smith come across the line with a 209.159, which was superb. But Melvin Goos sitting with, I think it's the current best lap, 208.888. I saw him say earlier, he's getting too old for this. He doesn't know how the guys are getting into the 209s. Well, really he found the answer because he's now into the 208s. Absolute superb drive on that previous lap. Behind them, Smith and Castellan now in a battle, yeah? Smith losing a little bit of speed and Castellan just positioning himself for that possible overtaking. Taking a very adventurous line through the chicane. You need to be careful that you don't lose control of your car. And now Castellan going for the switcheroo onto the main straight. He's not going to have the speed to pull alongside, although it does look a little bit like that. So he's pulling back into the toe, get a bit of extra speed. House is also closing up that gap with Krobler. We're going to have 2 more laps of racing here on Mugello with the MX5s for the first race. Of course, it being... Oh, and Castellan just charging up the inside of Smith. Smith having no answer for that, and Castellan is going to assume the 3rd position. So after this race, we do have a reverse grid. So if Mitchell has got his technical issues sorted, he might actually have a very good start for the 2nd race. But for now, it's all about this battle here for the first 4 positions. Smith is going to try and come back at Castellan here, showing the nose, putting on the pressure. And now this is an absolute duel to the end. Out in front, House and Krobler now fighting one another quite hard here for the race lead. House closing that gap slightly, setting a fastest 2nd sector, so that's purple in the 1st sector. And he's doing his utmost best to see where he can get the pace advantage on Krobler. Krobler, of course, wishing that this was the last lap, but there's not going to be one more lap of racing, and Krobler clinging onto that race lead for dear life. Behind him, Castellan Smith in a battle for 3rd, so he's going to have no respite from Goos behind him. As we pull onto the main straight for the 2nd to last time, and Goos getting a very, very decent exit out of that corner. We'll see whether he's got any kind of closing speed on Peter Krobler. Krobler running on the inside very defensively. And now Goos again with the 20888. 2 identical times in a row. That's very impressive. Now on the outside, we'll see if he's going to be able to make the pass stick on Krobler. He's missed the apex quite a bit, and they're still going to be side by side for the chicane. Goos just pulling ahead slightly and getting that move done. So it took him a few corners, but he's now secured 1st position. But now holding onto that onto that 1st position is going to be the challenge. You can see he's at the utmost grip of at the utmost level of grip on those rear tires as the rear end starts sliding a little bit. He's trying to extract as much out of this car as he possibly can. Now through the Arbiata corners for the final time in this race. Krobler sticking to Goos in front of him, but he's not got an answer for that immense amount of pace that Goos has there out in front. Castellan now seeing a fastest middle sector, so pulling away from Timo behind him and trying to secure that 3rd position. Krobler now still falling a little bit behind Goos and just losing a 10th here and 2, but that's enough to give a bit of breathing room for Goos, who's done an absolute stellar job in these final few laps. He's really opened up the throttle and just taking the car to a whole new level. Goos sticking it on the inside is all going to depend on this corner exit. It's going to be a possible drag race to the end. Krobler having a slight amount of closing speed, but that is not going to be enough, one would assume. It's going to be very, very close here at the finish, and Goos winning by the breadth of a hair. Castellan and Smith also finishing in 3rd and 4th, so very, very solid finish indeed. Someone we've not been seeing a lot for this race, Crook and Van Heerden, also in a photo finish for the end. This is going to be extremely close for them. And Van Heerden pulling ahead with 3/100ths of a second. Doing a stellar job there up to the very, very end. I just need to quickly take notes of the drivers here. And Leach Jr. slowly pulls across the line. Not sure what happened with him there. Tommy Louis Moss now coming around to finish his lap. Fortunately, a bit of a rough race for him, but he's going to finish strong. And then Dennis Mitchell getting his game sorted again, so he is going to come across the line in 17th position. So Mitchell and Moss heading out the front of the grid for the second race. So we've got 20 minutes of racing still left for you this evening. And it is going to be this gentleman right here out at the front of the grid. I'm going to quickly send you to an ad break, and then we'll be right back with race number 2. See you just now. Welcome back, ladies and gentlemen. We are back on the grid with the Div 1 races. Mitchell is sitting at the front of the grid, ready to lead us off into the second race here, the reverse grid race with the MX5 cars at Mugello. Just a quick note before we get started. Massive shout out to Yvonne Castellan shouting there for her husband. It's always nice seeing the spouses involved with this, and it always means a lot to us as sim racers, having our family support us like this. Right, 3 lights, 4, 5, 6 lights are up, and we are ready to get going. A massive start there from Tommy Leary Moss. Mitchell a bit slow off the line, and he's going to find himself side by side by the first corner. The rest of the pack getting away quite cleanly, and a bit of a 3 wide situation there with the cars in behind them. I think that's Leach Jr., Leitwanger, and Van Heere. Moss dropping in behind Mitchell, and he's going to find himself under pressure. I think that's Van Heeren running wide off the track there in the background as we pile on through. Moss still keeping in touch with Mitchell in front of him, but he is going to have pressure from Craig Wesley right behind him. 3/10, so nice, good pressure there right at the start of the race. Not waiting for the tyres to warm up, just absolutely going for it here in the first lap. I just realized I might have made a mistake. I think these tyres might be heated. I'm not exactly sure about that rule set. And now Leitwanger right in the middle of it. And Crook and Rust battling it out behind him. So Crook is under massive amounts of pressure right here, with Rust ready to pounce at any second. Out in front, Mitchell is absolutely opening up a gap with 1.3 seconds, and he's not even done with the first lap. So some superb racing from his part, and he might have just benefited quite well from that whole situation. But here and there in the background making some moves, and Crook just holding on to the back end there of Leitwanger. Wesley is now also under immense amount of pressure from Leach Jr. here, so he needs to be very, very careful into this final portion of the track. He's going to try and move on the inside of Tommy Leary Moss. They're going to come together. Tommy is going to unfortunately be the second fiddle in that situation, and some drivers losing out massively. I think that was Crook also going off in that whole situation. Slightly unrelated, but I think he got distracted. But here now on the inside of Wesley, he's got a huge drive and a bit of a draft in front of him from Leitwanger, and he's going to get the move secured before they even reach the corner. Behind them, Versace moving up on the inside of Rust, but not getting the move done yet. So into the chicane, they're going to be side by side. Versace is going to absolutely bully his way into the position. Some nice, clean, hard racing from these drivers. It looked a bit odd there. I think that was Rust getting held up on the apex. Oh, sorry, on the curbing there. Almost looked like he. I know that's some lag issues from his side. It almost looked like he hit a rock or something on the curbing, and the car just absolutely slowed for a second. The rest of the drivers very, very close together. I can't see a second gap, or a gap bigger than a second, until Tian Marais right there at the end in position 15. Upton right on the rear of Rust here, right on the outside, and he's going to unfortunately lose out. Running a bit too wide there on exit, and it has cost him quite dearly. Castellan already moving up places. Versace right on the rear of Wesley, and Wesley right on the rear of Van Heeren. So big battle here for 4th position. And that is Van Heeren running off the track slightly. Lost control of his car. He's done well to rejoin. Bit in the middle of things. That's going to be Castellan moving around the outside, and I would assume Goos as well. You can see the two cars, they're kind of drafting on through. Castellan has probably got very, very stressed about that rejoin right there. Versace and Wesley also duking it out now. And Wesley has a huge amount of trust in the netcode for this game. Drafting on behind Versage and going to try and pull side by side. He's going to have the outside line, but Versage does look like he's going to outbrake him there. And Wesley just piling on the pressure, but not getting an opportunity to get the move done. I'm not exactly sure what happened here to Rust, but made a mistake, and he just had a whole bunch of drivers coming on past him. Another mistake here, and he's got Probler right on his rear. So Probler most possibly getting that move done. It's going to be side by side through the chicane. And Rust holding on to it for dear life. Now we've got Rust just leading a whole mob of cars behind him as they try and get on through. Probler knows he needs to get past here. Mitchell is opening up an absolute monstrous gap of 5 seconds out in front, and then we've got people like Leitwanger and Versage also in the battle there, so he needs to get past so he doesn't lose touch with the rest of the pack. Rust taking an adventurous line across the curb. Franco there in the background going off track a little bit, possibly with some understeering. Oh, and Grobler and Rust nearly coming together there into the corner. They've done very well to avoid one another, but Rust having a few connection issues. Again, adventurous line over the curb. That is going to cost him if he's not careful. And he's going to have a driver going up the inside. That looks like him looking for an opportunity. Upton also pulling ahead. Versage now side by side here with Leitwanger on the outside. So Leitwanger is going to tuck him behind. He knows Versage has a bit more pace than him when it comes to this track, but he's going to try and learn from him now. Picking up a few things as they go along. So sticking right there to the rear of Versage. Next driver up the road, you can see him there in the foreground, is going to be Leach Jr. And he's done a stellar job of maintaining that second position. Goos and Wesley now also swapping position there in the background. So Goos now into 5th position. And he's going to start looking down the road for Leitwanger. Leitwanger holding on for dear life onto the back end of Versage's car. He's going to try and learn as much as he can with this half lap that he's getting. So he'll see if he can find a bit of extra pace there. There's Mitchell just charging out in front with a 209.074 on his previous lap. That is, I think, the best lap of the race. Unless Melbourne is already leading 208, which is a bit of a tall ask with the amount of fuel that they've got in at this stage of the race. Almost half distance for the race. Mitchell just having an absolute stellar time there out in front. It does make up for that rough race number 1 that he had. So big advantage starting off the front of the grid if you're one of the faster cars. So thankfully offsets the issues that he had previously. Close now very, very close together with Leitwanger. He's going to try and get a bit of a drive out of the hairpin, and he's now going to be drafting behind. Very fast closing speed, and that's almost going to be like an overtake you would get on the N1. So Goos now pulling ahead also into the 209s. And now looking at Versage a bit further down the road, I would presume. Bit of swapperoos going around down the main straight with the drivers behind them. Wesley up into 6th, battling there with Castellan. Van Dieren and Peter Grobler surprisingly close together. And That is Castellan and Wesley dropping back, so possible contact between those two drivers. And that's a very sad way to see that battle end. Meanwhile, Van Heeren keeping very close to Grobler, considering the pace that Grobler had in hand on the previous race. Close now, closing in on Versace a bit further up the road. So now the place to be is here. So Van Heeren is starting to fall behind Grobler slightly, which is to be expected considering the results of the previous race. But hopefully he learns a few things in those turns that he had behind him. Versace is feeling the pressure of Ghost behind him, so he knows he needs to get a move on. He needs to get ahead of Leach Jr. here if he wants to have any shot of opening up the gap with Ghost behind him. And he knows the amount of pace that Ghost has in hand. The previous lap, Ghost did close the gap down a little bit, about 1/10, so not a big advantage. Versace now behind Leach Jr. He's going to get a bit of a drive off him. He's going to squeeze him on the inside. Going to try and restrict him as much as possible, and then probably darting out to the racing line at the last second. Oh, that is very close. I don't know how he kept control of that car. Leach Jr. now backing off slightly, and he doesn't want to cause any issues. So some hard racing between these drivers. No one really wanting to let up. And Versace has pulled out ahead. With Leach Jr. slightly backing off from that battle in front of him, he is back off right into Ghost. So Ghost is probably smiling from ear to ear. He's now within a good striking distance. He's got a draft. And once he gets past Leach Jr., he's going to be close to Versace as well. So he's in a very, very good position looking at the end of the race if he can pull out the lap times that he's previously done. But now it's going to be another battle here between Versace and Leach Jr. So Leach now fighting back. He's kind of recovered from that earlier incident, and they're going to be neck and neck. Well, not neck and neck, but very close together for that first chicane. Leach Jr. learning from the previous, well, the start of the lap. Fortunately, he has compromised his exit a little bit, so Ghost is going to be on the outside waiting to pounce, squeezing him to the inside line, and unfortunately the two drivers coming together. They have rejoined the track in their respective positions, but I imagine that not being ideal for either of them. Ghost now has Leitwanger to deal with behind him, so he's going to try and charge up the inside again. He's going to see if he can get it done. He's on through, and now James Leach Jr. is under pressure here from Leitwanger. Leitwanger pulling ahead slightly. Oh, and contact yet again. So that is unfortunate. And I suspect that it is not going to be looked on favorably by the stewards. Ghost now pulling ahead. And Grobler behind him slightly down the road. But Versace is in a good position here for the end of the race. So 6.5 minutes left of the race. And it is going to come down to consistency. Versace running over the curb so heavily that I kind of heard in my earphones. I almost thought that he had one massive crash. Meanwhile, he's just running as close to the racing line as he possibly can. Someone that we haven't really kept an eye that much is Craig Wesley. Battling it out here at the end of the pack. He's under pressure from Crook. So Crook piling on the pressure, trying to see if he can get through, but Wesley just opens that gap up even more. Ross Himan is now caught up with Leach Jr. And there is contact between drivers yet again. Himan's trying to pull off the line to let Leach Jr. back onto the track. Leach is not going to rejoin, and Wesley is now back into the race. It is a bit of a tricky situation though. He tried to pull there right in the racing line, so that could have ended a lot worse than it did. So James Leach Jr. dropping out of the race, and the rest of the drivers continuing. Mitchell out in front, 208 and 954. So he's absolutely blasting around this track at the moment. So he doesn't even need an apex right there. He's just carrying that speed as well as he can. Keeping the foot in through that 90-degree right-hander. And now up towards the chicane. There's going to be a little bit of an application of the brakes. You can see he's kind of aiming a bit further into the corner than he really needs to, but that's straight lining that chicane as much as possible. Oh, and a bit of an overcorrection there. He nearly lost the end there. You can see he's well around the curbs, utilizing as much of the track as he possibly dares. Slight bit of a lift there through Arbiata 1. Now is just charging through towards the last sector of the track. The chicane being quite tricky. There isn't really a way of straight lining it, but these cars are fast enough that you can carry quite a amount of speed if you don't scrub it too much with your tires slipping all over the place. Mitchell going even faster than his previous lap. So we might have accidentally gone on board for the fastest lap if he can keep it together right here. One more corner here for Dennis Mitchell, and then it's going to be his time in the limelight. Looking at on the apex, optimizing for that exit speed, and he is going to improve on his previous lap. So coming across the line, and we'll see what he's got in store for us right here. And that's going to be a 2:08.815, so even faster than the time that Ghost set in the previous lap. So superb job there from Mitchell. Closest battle on track at the moment is Franco sticking to the rear of Tian Marais in the battle for 8th position. So he's down the main straight. He's not going to have too much of a drive, and he's just going to stick behind him through that little kink in the road. And these Italians do like a good kink on the main stretch. I mean, it's Mugello, and then you've got that kink in the road for Imola. I mean, we had a massive collision there between George Russell and Valtteri Bottas in F1. So yeah, I don't know, it feels like the Italians feel they just want to add a little bit of twist to the straights. A good old straights is just not enough for them, it would seem. And then of course you've got Monza with the biggest of twists that you can possibly get at the end of a straight. But we'll not speak about the F1 results on that one. Of course, extremely happy with the winners in that race. But some other things happening in there as well. While we're talking nonsense, Franco is still stuck to the rear of Tian Marais. Not much happening. And Grobler and Ghost now in an outright battle. Mitchell jumping to the pits yet again as his game disconnects. He's not had the best day with his computer by the looks of things. This race has just been blown wide open, and Grobler smelling and Post smelling an opportunity is going to secure that second position. Robert sticking to him like bubblegum as they pile on through the main straight, and we'll see what kind of closing speed he's got, and absolutely nothing at the moment, so he's going to look for a different opportunity in the lap if he can keep up. And 2 laps of racing left. Versage still needs to cross that start-finish line. And that end of the race can't come sooner for Goos. So Goos is doing his utmost best to stay ahead. Versage 4 seconds down the road, so he just needs to keep his nose clean. And he should be fine. The rest of the field now kind of thinking a bit more about self-preservation, about holding on to the positions that they had. But if you are this close to a second position, you're going to be fighting tooth and nail for it. So Rodler and Goos just having a ball of a time here through the 2 RB Alta corners. I'm just trying to suss out where they can gain that advantage. Robler now just sticking to that rear of Goos' car, just keeping in touch. Although, as I say it, he loses heaps of time there going through the chicane. And I am wondering whether he's calling it. It does seem like he's now thinking a bit more about just keeping the car in control. Maybe he's not that confident with the tyres at this stage. These cars don't wear their tyres that aggressively, so it shouldn't be a problem. Especially with a 20-minute race. I can't imagine the tyres falling off a cliff anywhere near that time. But if you do not find the confidence, then it's going to be tricky. So we'll see what kind of lap time Goos does there in second position. Versage, of course, losing a bit of time in comparison, just trying to do as consistent of a lap as possible. And there you can see Goos 5 tenths faster than Robler behind him, just opening up that gap even more. Versage now running away with the race here out in front. Probably the luckiest man on the circuit, just being handed the first position like that. But technical difficulties are a thing with these older simulators, so Assetto Corsa especially can become quite tricky, especially once you've got a whole library of mods, cars, and applications for use in races. Versage now just coming around the last few corners, trying to keep it as clean as possible. You can see he's quite a way down on his delta. He's just managing that gap behind him and Goos that's just down the road, so he knows exactly what that time difference is. Richard van Heeren and Ian Upton are still fighting over this 4th position, and trying to go for it right up until the end, and he only has a few more corners left to do. 2 more hairpins and that is it. The fat lady will sing and the race will be over, so he's going to have to do it all in the last corner if he wants to have any kind of chance at this. And will be tantalizingly close if he does. Unfortunately, makes an error under braking. You can see he had to correct for the car. That's going to be the fight over and done. And Van Heeren securing that 4th position. So we're going to finish Versage, who comes across the line in first position. A bit of a shocker. And then Goos in 2nd. Peter Kolber 3rd. Richard van Heeren 4th position. And then Upton behind him. Timo Smit and Tian Marie also coming across the line, 6th and 7th respectively. Craig Wesley in a drag race with him and almost missed that one, but so close together there at the end. Heman just ahead of Crook. Sorry, Wesley. Right there at the end. And we are possibly going to have a few spins from the drivers there. So I will make a quick note of everyone and then quickly round up a few drivers for our interviews. Just a quick moment, and I will be back with you shortly. Welcome back, ladies and gentlemen. I'm joined here by Melvin Goos. And Melvin, that was an absolute wonderful session from your perspective. Massive congratulations on that first position on the first race, and then getting that second position secured for the second race as well. I mean, you're probably smiling from ear to ear.
I'm spitting more than smiling, but yeah, it was fun. It was pretty hard. I love the track. I've always loved Mugello, and the car is just so much fun to drive on here. But it wasn't easy. You've got to be so smooth. But it was fun. I thoroughly enjoyed that.
Yeah, and you were definitely smooth indeed. We saw you in the YouTube chat kind of saying, yeah, you don't know how the guys are doing 209s. And then you just dropped a bomb of a 208 888. I mean, where did you find that time?
I don't know. I tried it again in the second race. I couldn't get below 209 flat. I think I had some toe down the straight, and that gave me about that 0.2. But once you get into a rhythm, you can just flow with it.
You did repeat it twice. So I mean, that was lightning doesn't strike twice. So you definitely you figured something out there in that first race, but you were absolutely flying. And then in terms of that second race start. What was that like from your perspective, kind of battling all the way from the back of the pack?
That was a bit crazy, but Peter and I both was fortunate enough there was some argy-bargy in the front, and we managed to slip through. So after, I think, turn 3, we went from 18th or 19th right up to, I think, 10th, 12th, I'm not sure. And then we basically just went behind each other and started chasing down the pack. And as the guys made mistakes, that allowed us to get through. At one stage towards the end, I actually thought he was going to pass me, and then he sort of backed off. So thanks for that.
Yeah, it looked very close there up until the end. And I mean, we had Dennis Mitchell kind of leading from the front right at the start. Unfortunately, his game not playing along, he had quite a bit of technical issues. Were you a bit confused when you saw that you currently just when you suddenly just moved up a position there near the end?
I actually saw on the live timings that Dennis has gone off, and he said in the chat room that he's got issues. So that was a bit sad when I saw him going off course. It would have been so much more fun, especially in race 1 if we were 5 and not just 4. Fighting for the lead, and then race 2 was his basically until he picked up glitches again, which is it's doesn't always go your way, and I feel sorry for him for that.
Yeah, that is unfortunately the kind of the running theme with racing is if your luck is bad, well, if it rains, it pours, actually, basically. So there's unfortunate, but we'll see him come back for the next weekend's races. Melvin, from your side, any shout outs for people supporting you that you want to point out?
Well, the SRAC guys, obviously on the stream, especially Cleopas. He's been he's been all over it all afternoon. We've done the Polo Cup earlier, and now we did these two races. And when he wasn't commentating, he was on the chat and he was just boosting for us. So everyone from SRAC, shouting out to the guys and supporting them. Thanks for that, and to you guys for all the effort you put in and sitting with us, bumping each other, and just with all the admin stuff. We know what it's like. So thanks, guys.
Yeah, that thanks goes out to Dennis Mitchell and Mornay Deploy. That's kind of been doing some behind the scenes work for us. I might be missing out if there's someone even further down behind the scenes. So apologies if I missed you and you aren't involved in the stewarding process. But yeah, big thanks to Dennis Mitchell and Mornay Deploy for kind of running a few of the admin things for us. I'm not seeing another driver. So I'll just quickly see if there's one of the guys waiting for a bit of a chat.
Cool.
And then I'll be right back. Thank you so much, Melvin, for your time.
Cheers, Jan.
Okay, I'm back. Sorry. It seems like everyone just wants to chat with one another about the race that happened. I can imagine there being a few heated discussions with some of the things that happened out in track. Unfortunately, I do not want to comment or commentate on that kind of thing because it's not my place to do so. Just quickly making sure that I'm not talking to myself again. Okay, so for the next race, so we've got Tor Poznan, a bit of an unfamiliar track, not something that I've really seen around. It's going to be the 26th. We'll be running that race. That is a Polish track, if I remember it correctly. So something that's been built on top of an old military base. It's going to be interesting to see what that track looks like. Lots of these tracks are kind of running on military bases and old airfields. I mean, Silverstone being one of the very famous ones. But if you've stuck around until now, thank you so much for sticking around. If you want to get involved, you can, of course, follow this YouTube channel. There's going to be other races on here as well. We'll be streaming our F1 Saturdays for the Russian Grand Prix when that happens. So usually after qualifying. And then Mazda MX5 is, of course, next weekend. We'll be running same time, same place, both Div 2 and Div 1. If you want to get involved, there's a Discord link in the description below, so you can get involved there. We've got F3s, MX5s, we've got the F1 cars as well, if you can qualify for it. So a whole bunch of action going on all around, and I would imagine there's quite a few things in the pipeworks as well. There's always kind of a small project that you might not know about. So, and then just a big thanks to our sponsors yet again. So big shout out to Elwin, who's been our loyal supporter all this time. They've been with us right from the V8 days. And then, of course, big thanks to Tommy Leary Moss's company, the KDP, as well, for sponsoring that beautiful trophy that we saw earlier. And then also Mornay Deploy from Skinny Media for doing all the video work and kind of giving me these little care packages for things to stream with. Thank you so much. And then to all of the people at Sim Experience South Africa running the admin for us, big thanks. It's been awesome watching and spectating and commentating. I mean, it's very close racing. To you as drivers, thank you so much for your prep, and for you as the people and the YouTube chat, thank you so much for your support. Thank you so much for looking after your favorite drivers. From me, Johan, thank you very much, and I hope you have a lovely evening and an awesome week to come.